What is up, guys? It's Alex here, back for another video, and in this video what I want to do is address a question that I got to the previous video that I made. And this video here was about hero chaining and using side heroes. It was part 2, so here I went into some more complex details on how to chain properly, and what I go into here is actually discussing that before you can actually chain properly, before you can even get to that point, you need to get good at prioritizing, right? You need to get good at scouting the map and prioritizing the objects that are in your biome and trying to farm them in the most efficient way possible. And in some cases, in a lot of cases actually, that means that you would be giving up on some objects, if they slow you down too much. And here we have a question from AdamTHBC, and he said, how do I know that I should give up on something? And how do I tell if farming a little more is going to slow me down instead? Sure, I want to break ASAP, but is this it? Stop farming when you're strong enough to survive the break. Thank you, Adam, for the question. It is a very good question, and it's not one that has such a straightforward answer. There are a lot of things to consider, and I'm going to try to cover the things that you need to consider in this video. And when you're making the decision of whether or not you want to farm your biome a little more or break as soon as possible or break sooner. So the first thing that you should consider is the fact that the center, on average, is going to be a lot more rich than your biome. So, for example, even this screen alone, we can already see 3 hives. We can see a fire tome here. We can see a cuirass, a thunder helmet here. Earth tome over here. This one screen right here has like 5 relics already. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You're not going to have that in your biome, right? You're not going to have this kind of richness in your biome. So on average, by breaking into the center, you stand to gain more than you do by farming your biome longer. So that is one argument in favor of actually breaking sooner than later. Now, another part of your thought process should be the fact that the center is shared and your biome is yours. So the thing is that you can always go back to farm your biome if you need to, but when you get into the center, you're not only farming the good stuff, you're also denying your opponent the good stuff, the opportunity to farm it, if he breaks later than you. So a lot of good players, what they're actually going to do, if you watch them play, what they'll do is they'll actually get into the center and they'll go to their opponent's side first and they'll farm that. So that will deny your opponent the opportunity to farm anything. So he would be limited to what's in his biome, and you would have control of the center. And, you would be able to just continue farming. Then you can go to your biome and farm that if you need to. So that is another argument in favor of actually breaking early and farming the center rather than biome gaming longer. And of course, if you biome game, then you give your opponent the opportunity to do that, right? Now, another part of the argument for actually breaking early is the fact that you also have access to side biomes. So if you get control of the center, you're also going to have access to 2 side biomes. So let's say the center is not very good. Well, you can always go and try to farm other side biomes that you would have access to that your opponent would not if he has not broken yet, right? Because you cannot actually go from your biome into a side biome, right? It's, the rules are that you have to do a break, right? You have to do a break to get into a zone, and there's actually no break between a biome and another biome. So you would have to do, the only way for your opponent to actually, let's say you scouted this, his break, and he did not do it. Well, the only way for him to get into another side biome would be to do a side break, and, for you to not see that. To do his side break and then a side break into this biome, which would likely take him a lot of time unless he has something like wings or fly or dimension door. So again, and this is another argument in favor of breaking earlier, is that it just gives you more opportunities to get stronger, more possibilities to win, even if the center is not that great, even if your opponent is really strong, even if you have a fight and you end up kind of trading away your army, you would have access to side biomes as well. Okay, so now a few arguments in favor of actually biome gaming, right? So one of the things that you also need to consider, so you always need to weigh the risk versus the reward, right? And in this case, our break is pretty easy. So Hydras is something that's easily slowable, it's easily kiteable. We should be able to do that, with the amount of stuff even here. We see 3 hives, we see more hives over here. So we should probably be able to get somewhere around 30 Wyvern, and especially if we have mass slow. Even without mass slow, this would be doable, but with mass slow, it would just be complete easy mode. So this break is quite easy to do that, right? So if you have an easier break, you would be more likely to break earlier, right? But if you have a more difficult break, like let's say this was Archdevils, that would potentially be an argument for breaking later, especially if your map has some tools to help you do that break on fewer losses. Like if you see good artifacts, if you see a Utopia, if you maybe build up your mage guild to maybe get a good spell like Resurrect or summons or some good battle magic or something like that, it may be worth it to actually delay the break by a turn or two to be stronger and to suffer fewer losses, right? So this is kind of me addressing this part of the comments. Stop farming when you're strong enough to survive the break. And the part that I really want to kind of emphasize here is the fact that Adam here says survive the break. You don't just want to survive the break. Once you do the break, you want to still be strong enough to do difficult fights in the center, because usually, let's say you're going for the Earth Tome. This is a throng of Minotaur Kings. That's basically like another break. So you would need to fight something that's pretty much just as strong as your break to get some of those really good artifacts. And in some cases, it would be difficult. These Titans, for example, 1019 Titans, they could easily be guarding the Earth Tome. And in some cases, of course, you also weigh the risk versus the reward. But in some cases, it may be worth doing that fight to get the Earth Tome, even if you lose, a good amount of your army. So that's always a part of your thought process, is how strong are you going to be and what are you actually going to lose when you do the break. So if your break is more difficult and farming your biome a little bit more is going to allow you to do that on fewer losses, and it's going to, so you still want to be as strong as possible when you enter the desert so that you can potentially do some difficult fights in the desert as well. So that's kind of an argument for potentially delaying the break, is if you have a difficult break, and farming your biome a little bit more is going to help you do that on fewer losses. Now, another kind of point to consider here is going to be, what is your power stack, right? So for example, here we see that we have a few hives, right? And let's say we farmed a few hives, and we have a stack of Wyvern, but it's not big enough. It's like, let's say we have 20 Wyvern, right? And we think that to do this break comfortably, we need somewhere maybe around 25, 30, something like that. And let's say we found this hive that we didn't see previously. Well, if we think that our power stack needs that little bit of a boost to actually be able to do the break a lot more comfortably, we would be a little bit more likely to delay that so we can farm. Not by too much. You don't want to delay by too much. However, you would be more likely to delay than, for example, to farm something like this Picket when you don't have any Cyclopes in your army. So if our power stack is Wyvern, and I find some other object like Pickets, Experimental Shop, Conces, and I'm thinking, well, do I actually want to chain for that? I would be a lot less likely to chain for something that I don't already have in my army. So But if these were hives and my army could use that boost, my power stack could use that boost, then I would be a little bit more likely to actually chain for that. However, there is kind of a point of diminishing returns. So let's say if we already have 30 Wyvern, right? That's going to be good enough to do this break. That's going to be enough, especially when we have, a good stronghold hero with good attack. That's probably going to be enough to one-shot the stacks of Hydras that we're going to be facing. So, the difference between, let's say we find this hive and we already have 30 Wyvern, and we think that we're going to be delayed by 1 turn. Well, worst case scenario, that's going to be 4 additional Wyvern. So a difference between 34 and 30 is not that high. It's not worth the 1-day delay. Now, a difference between 20 and 24, or 20 and let's say like 28 or 32, that could be worth it. So again, it is that determination that you need to make, the risk versus reward. How much are you actually going to gain by delaying? And, how much are you actually going to be delayed? So the more you're delayed and the less you gain, the more likely you're going to be to not actually delay and to go ahead and break, right? Now, another part of consideration is if you happen to find something that's really, really good, like if you happen to find a relic, like let's say here in the corner, we found an earth tome, right? Well, an earth tome would be really friggin' good to have because that's, kind of what you're looking for when you get into the center. And if you find it in your biome, the guard is going to be weaker than the guard in the center because the guards in the center are strong, the guards in your biome are weak. So if you happen to find an earth tome especially, and you think it's going to delay you by even like 2 turns or something like that, there is certainly an argument for a delay in the break to get it. Because for one, here we see an earth tome, but it's really far off road. We probably never even get to it. So you may not even find an earth tome in the center, or it may be something like this where it's going to take you a few days off road to actually get it. So if you find it in your biome, especially with an earth tome, you can town portal back and chain it back without too big of a delay. So if you find something really, really good like that, and you're ready to break, but you happen to find an earth tome over here, that would be a pretty big argument in favor of actually delaying the break so that you can get that earth tome. Same with something like a teapot, same with something like a sword of judgment. Those are really good relics that you're looking for when you get into the center. And if you can get them in your biome, great. You would be pretty likely to actually delay your break a little bit if you need to in favor of actually getting that relic. And I believe the last thing that I'm going to mention. So, next to last thing. So there's 2 more things I'm going to mention. You are always depending on chance. So while, I mentioned that the center is going to be more rich, notice that I said on average, in general, right? It's not always the case. Sometimes the center can be complete shit. And sometimes by breaking early, you're actually going to put yourself in a weaker position. So that's also something that you're kind of going to need to consider. And one of the things that you can kind of, how you can determine whether or not the center is going to be good is if your biome is really big. So like this, the biome is really, really big, actually. And that usually means that the center is going to be small, right? Not in all cases, because here actually the center is not as small because the biomes at the top and the bottom here are smaller than the biomes on the left and the right. However, the center could still be a lot bigger than this, but that's going to be kind of a part of your consideration. If your biomes are really big and if you determine that the center is small, maybe it's not as good of an idea, especially if your biome gives you something good. Maybe it's a good idea to actually get a bit stronger before you break. However, in a lot of cases, you're not really going to know whether the center is good or not, right? I mean, you can determine whether it's small or big, but still small centers can still be good and big centers can be bad too. So you are going to want to, in a lot of cases, still get into the center and scout it until you actually make that determination. Because your biome, like let's say you have utopias at home, and you decide to do them in biome game, they can be bad. Same as utopias in the center can be bad, and the center itself can be bad. So you're always kind of dealing with that RNG factor, whether, sometimes you break early and you don't get anything in the center. Sometimes you biome game and you get strong enough and you actually wreck your opponent because he doesn't get anything in the center. Or sometimes you biome game and you get nothing out of your home utopias. Like, for example, I had a game where I actually biome gamed a little bit, and I was castle, and I actually biome gamed to get archangels. On 1, 2, 3, I had 15 archangels, and this was a size 3 utopia that I did. And 2 relics were 2 sacks of shit, and 1 decent relic. So, and because of that, when I broke on 1, 2, 3, our opponent already had Earth Tome. He had like 20 all stats, and my 15 archangels died to like 2 implosions. So there was no way to win. So that's a risk that you're always taking with biome gaming. You're always risking actually giving your opponent the ability to get stronger, and potentially you risk not really getting strong enough if your utopias are crap. Now, and the last thing that I'm going to say that should be a part of your consideration whether or not you're deciding to biome game and farm your biome a little bit longer is certain factions are better for biome gaming than others. So, for example, Castle, it's pretty common to go for the Angels build as Castle because it's relatively easy to build. It's expensive, but it's easier to build than like Red Dragons or Green Dragons, for example. Those are really difficult to build. But Angels, also Behemoths, also Giants and Hydras are pretty easy to build overall. So if you're one of those factions, if you're a castle, if you're a stronghold, if you're a fortress, if you're a tower, you would be a little bit more likely potentially to biome game to get your higher tier units. So, if you get Archangels as Castle, even if it's, the late game or, like the mid to late game, you're still going to have a pretty good chance. Like, let's say, your opponent doesn't get a whole lot in the center, he doesn't find any good magic, and you break with those, like in that situation that I had. If our opponent didn't really get a whole lot in the center and we break with 15 Archangels, then of course we would win. So, yeah, if you can actually get those upgraded tier 7 units, like the Archangels, like Ancient Behemoths, like Titans as Tower, and if it's viable to not be too late, not do it on like 1-3-1, but let's say do it on 1-2-2, 1-2-3, or something like that, or 1-2-1 even, ideally, you may be a little bit more likely to consider biome gaming. And again, it's all going to be a combination of those factors. So you're going to be taking into account what your biome has, how big the center is, what the break is, how favorable your biome and your faction is for biome gaming. And all of those factors kind of need to come together, and you need to make that determination. Obviously, it's still going to be on you. It's still going to be your decision to make. It's also going to depend on your playstyle. Some people like biome gaming more than others. However, I hope that this video helped you guys. I hope that the factors that I've described in this video are, something that you, gave you a little bit more knowledge that you can now consider when you're deciding whether or not to biome game or break. Alright guys, so I'm going to end the video there. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you found this useful. And as always, if you guys want to see more Heroes 3 content, check out my Twitch stream. I will have the link in the description below. Also, you're welcome to subscribe to this channel on YouTube, as I do release new video guides every week. So if you subscribe and turn on the notifications, you'll be notified when I release new videos. And I also have a Facebook group to the stream if you guys want to join to be updated on what's going on and also to be eligible for giveaways. We already did a giveaway at 1,000 Twitch followers. I'm going to do one more giveaway for sure at 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. So if you guys want to be eligible on that, go ahead and subscribe, or follow and like the Facebook page. Alright guys, once again, thank you so much for watching. I hope you learned something, and I'm going to end the video there, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace out.